Okay, so if section 6.2 is over percents, decimals, and fractions, we're going to write our train of thought here first. So if you want to go to percent to a decimal, it means per 100. So you're just going to take your percent and divide by 100. AKA, move your decimal to the left 2 spots to make it a small decimal. How do you go from a decimal to a fraction? That's something that we learned on like 5.1 or 5.2. You need to put that number you see over the tenths, hundreds, or thousands, whatever the place value is, right? So put over 10, 100, 1,000, etc. And we can revisit that if you don't remember that, but that was one of the first things. Like if you had 0.8, that was 8 tenths, so you put 8 over 10 and reduced it. But what's great is now that we have our calculator, we can put it over 10 or 100 and hit math frac, and it'll reduce it for us. All right, so that's one direction. What if we want to go the other way? What if we want to go from a fraction to a decimal? Well, what we're going to have to do is simply divide. So if you want to go from a fraction to a decimal, you're just going to divide. So if you have 3/5, take 3 divided by 5. But guess what we can do in our calculator now? 3 divided by 5. Okay, so that's nice. And then if you want to go from a decimal to a percent, to undo it, we divided by 100. So to go back, what do you think we're going to do? Times it by 100. So it's just kind of a circle. Remember, decimal's always small, percent's always big. Decimal's always small, percent's always big. So if you need to make it small, you're dividing. If you need to make it big again, multiply. A fraction is division, okay? And again, we can use our calculator on all this stuff. So number one, right off the bat, they're trying to kind of be tricky, okay? It says, write the percent described by the, I'll leave that in case you're writing. Write the percent described by the sentence. In a recent survey of 100 students, 63 of the students indicated that they eat lunch at the dining hall. What percent of students surveyed do not eat lunch at the dining hall? So it's kind of a trick question. So if I said, okay, there's 100 students and 63 of them are eating there, what percent eat there? You would put 63 over 100. But that's not what it asked. It said, how many are not eating in the dining hall? What do we need to do? Subtract it, right? If we know 63 are, then 100 minus 63 aren't, correct? Throw that in your calculator. What do you get? So we have 37 over 100, which equals 0.37. I'm just throwing that in my calculator, which equals 37%. And I'll show you how I did all that. Percent means per 100. Percent means per 100. So if I know 37 students aren't, then how many is the ratio? 37 over 100. You got to change that fraction to a decimal first by dividing. So in your calculator, in your cell phone even, right? I think we can do most of this on our cell phones today. You'll get 0.37, but what is that as a percent? 37%. If it was just how many are, it'd just be 63 over 100 right off the bat. 0.63, 63%. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep this little train in mind as we go from a percent to a decimal. All right, how do we go from a percent to a decimal? According to here, to go from a percent to a decimal, what do we need to do to each thing? Divide by 100. So we're going to make a note of that. We're going to divide everything by 100. So in your calculator, cell phone, whatever, take 32 and divide by 100. What do you get? 0.32. Isn't that great, guys? On B, divide by 100. What do you get? 0.057. Baby giggles are allowed. 120 is over 100%, so we should get a decimal over 1. What do you get? 1.2. 0.02 is a very, very small decimal, so when we divide by 100, we should get an even smaller decimal. What do you get? Does that look okay? So all we need to realize is percent. Notice all of them were bigger. 32 as a percent was bigger than 0.32, right?
I got 3.
You did get 3?
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm off by 1. You are.
How'd you do that, though?
What did yours say to you?
What do you mean?
Who said, how'd you do that? Yeah.
I put 0.02
Divided by 100.
divided by 100, and I got
Scientific notation.
2x, and then a line over 10, and then a 4.
You put it wrong button.
No, what I think it is,
And then I even did put it.
What was it?
Decimal,
like that?
but there was like a line over the 10, so it was almost like a fraction kind of.
Okay, so has anybody taken a science class where they've seen scientific notation before? Okay. Whenever you have, and I'll look at yours to see what it is whenever you get to really small numbers or really large numbers, they use powers of 10 to show that you're moving over that many spots. So this means take 2 and move your decimal to the left 4 spots. So 1, you know what I mean? Like we'd have 2 and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 3 zeros in front. Did yours do that? So you have e to the negative 4th? So e to the negative 4th is the same idea, okay? So it means take whatever number you see 2 and move it over that many spots to the left, okay? If it was a positive 4, you'd move it that many spots to the right. Those that have our count, like I think this is where cell phones might help us. Cell phones, I think, just say 0.0002. Like they don't usually use scientific notation. All right. Again, I kind of want to point out stuff. Most percentages are between 0 and 100. So most decimals are between 0 and 1. When we go over 100%, you go over 1. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind to make sure your math is happening okay. Let's look at E through H. We want to write each as a percent, or each percent as a fraction or a mixed number. So notice we have 2 steps we're going to have to do. To get from a fraction to a percent, to get from a percent to a fraction, we're going to have to change it to a decimal first, then we're going to have to change it to a fraction. If you have that on your cell phone, it's not that bad, or excuse me, on your calculator, it's not that bad. So what we're going to do is we first have to change this to a decimal. So change to decimal. Then put over 10 or 100, etc. Okay, so I'm just rewriting kind of what we did. So step 1 is to change it to a decimal. So we got to divide by 100. What's your first move that you get? 0.15. Is that okay? That's our middleman, though. That's just him. Now looking at 15, what is this? This is tenths, hundredths. This is 15 hundredths, correct? So, actually, we can just kind of see it right there. There's 15 hundredths. Put that in the calculator and hit math frat. What do you have? What do you guys get for 15 hundredths? What'd you say? 3/20ths. So actually, we almost don't have to change it to decimal because by writing it like that, there it is. You know, there's our fraction. 8.1. Divide it by 100, right? But when you do that, you get 0.081, and you can hit math frac. Or those that are doing it by hand,
I'm like really confused.
what'd you get?
I got 0.3 zeros after the decimal 81. So I did 8.1 divided by 100.
You got 8.1 divided by 100, and you have 3 zeros in front of it? That shouldn't be right.
3 zeros after the decimal.
That should be right. So just clear it out and put 8.1 divided by 100.
Okay, now
Okay.
now it's 1.
But then if you hit math frac, what do you guys get? You get 81 over 1,000?
Yep.
Okay. Because, again, guys, those that are doing it by hand, we have to go back to our earlier sections of chapter 5. This is tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So it's 81 over 1,000, and it doesn't reduce any. So there's our fraction, 81 over 1,000. But again, I know this is not a whole lot of fun for those that don't have that calculator that you're able to hit that math frac button, okay? So make sure you get that scientific calculator, or 275 divided by 100, hit math frac, you get 2.75, but when you hit math frac, what happens? Say it louder. 11 over 4. Why is it an improper fraction? Well, what do you notice about our percent, guys? That percent is bigger than 100, okay? So you're more than 1 over. So that's why it turned to 2.75. So those that have your calculator or cell phone, you're getting 2.75, right? But you are losing the, what do we do with it? So technically what this is, guys, sorry, if you're doing it by hand, this would be 2 and 75 over 100. But then that would reduce to 2 and 3/4. But guess what 2 and 3/4 is? 11/4, okay? So pay attention to what my math lab might want. If they want just a normal fraction or a mixed number, we're gonna probably have to do this one. So even though our calculator is giving us 11/4, they didn't say an improper fraction was okay. So we gotta make sure we change this to a mixed number. How do you change this to a mixed number? How many times does 4 go into 11? Say it louder. Twice with a remainder of 3. Do you remember doing that? Right? 4 goes into 11 twice because you get to 8. And how far is 8 off of 11? 3. Okay? So again, I'm kind of showing you two ways because we're in kind of limbo because not everyone has a calculator. If I had a calculator, I would just do this and get 11/4 and change it to a mixed number. Okay? If you don't have a calculator, you have to remember that you have to divide it. Your whole number will stay the whole number, and then this is tenths, hundredths. That's 75 over 100, and then you have to reduce it by doing 5 times 5 times 3 and so forth. Okay? 5.5%. How do we do that? Again, we have to change it to an improper fraction. So that's 10 times 5, which is, or 2 times 5 is 10 plus. So this is 11/2 divided by 100. Hit math frac, what do you get? Yep. Those that are doing it by hand, how could we do this by hand? 11/2 stays the same, 100 flips, right? 11 would not cancel out with 2 or 100, so you multiply straight across the top to get 11, straight across the bottom to get 200. So this is just 11 over 200. So again, you can do it by hand, it's just going to be a little bit more work. Okay? So what we'll do is we'll try to, again, kind of do what you can with your cell phone and then flip-flop who gets the calculator. Are there any questions on the front page, guys? To write a percent as a decimal, strictly divide by 100. To write a percent as a fraction, decimal's the middleman. Divide by 100 and then hit math frac. Okay? Let's go ahead and flip it to the top of page 2. How do we write a fraction as a percent? Again, the decimal is going to be the middleman. Oh, hold on. Where am I? I'm too high. Okay. So how do we write a decimal as a percent? That's going backwards. We're taking a decimal, which is small, and we want to make it to a percent. So what are we going to do? We're going to multiply by 100. And it's that easy. You can put it in your cell phone. You can put it in your calculator. We're just going to take 0.77 times 100. What do you guys get? And then don't forget, since it's changed into a percent, what unit do you need? The percent sign, okay? That's the only guy who's going to have a unit.
Can't you just move the decimals back?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So remember, anytime you multiply by 100, you're moving it to the right 2 spots. If you're dividing by 100, you're moving it to the left 2 spots. Exactly. So we don't even really have to show that. We can just say bloop bloop, and it's 260%. Okay? Or this, right? 260%. Is it more than 100? Yeah, because our decimal was more than 1. Okay? 1 is equivalent to 100. 0.081, again, multiply by 100, what do you guys get? You should just get 8.1%, yep. And then 3 is very much larger than 1, so when we multiply by 100, what do you guys get? 300%. Decimal to percent to decimal aren't bad because you're just multiplying or dividing by 100. It's that fraction to a percent where we have to do the most work. All right. So this, guys, I think is still not horrible because all we have to do is divide them first to get them in decimal form, and then we multiply by 100, okay? So in your cell phone, you should be able to do this. Take 23 divided by 50. What do you get? 0.46 times 100. What do you get? 46%, right? So we're going to divide first on this guy to get the 0.46, but then at that point it's like A through D, right? And so we're just going to multiply by 100. What do you guys get when you take 3 divided by 5? 0.6 times that by 100, aka move your decimal over 2 spots. What do you guys get? 60%. Does that look okay? 7/12. What do you get when you take 7/12 and divide by, or 7 divided by 12?
0.583.
Yes. So we're going to get 0.583 repeating, and we're going to times that by 100. So that's going to be 58.3 repeating percent, or I don't know if they'll make you do this, but just kind of a rule of thumb, anytime you have a repeating number like that, it's over 9. So like if you have 1 repeating, that's 1/9. If you have 2 repeating, that's 2/9. If you have 3 repeating, that's 3/9 or 1/3. So this is actually,
Why is it a 9?
it's just the rule of thumb. And I can prove it to you if you want, but I don't think we have to do it in this class. I don't think we have to do that proof. Most likely, guys, on my math lab, they'll say round to the nearest 10th or 100th, and you put 0.3 or 0.33%. All right, 4 2/5, what do we have to do to it first? Improper, you got it. So what is 4 2/5 as an improper fraction? 22 over 5. Take 22 over 5 and divide it, and you get what? 4.4. Multiply that by 100, and what do you get? You got it. Again, 4 is way bigger than 1, so 440% is way bigger than 100%. All right? So this little chart is really itty-bitty tiny, and I have a PDF, so I couldn't edit it. So these little lines here, there's not a whole lot of work. They're going to give you one or the other, and you have to fill in the other two, okay?
I've
So
seen this on my math.
yeah, where you kind of fill in the chart, and you're like, see you later, I don't want to do this, right? So I think it's always easy if you have a fraction to turn it into a decimal first, and if you have a decimal, it's easy to change it to percent. So how do we go from a fraction to a decimal? You literally just divide. What's 3 divided by 20? What did you get, 0.15?
Yeah.
Is that okay? And then let's skip down here. 2 1/6, what is that as an improper fraction? 13 over 6. And what is he as a decimal? 2.16 repeating. So I kind of just did those because those were the easy ones, all right? What's the next easiest? If you have a decimal, what do we have to do to it to change it to a percent?
100.
Move that decimal point over 2 spots or multiply by 100. So, I don't know how to show you all this work, okay? So to get from a decimal to a percent, we're just going to multiply by 100. So what is 0.15 as a percent?
150.
15%. You got it.
Oh, sorry.
What is 55 as a percent? Oh, I just said it. 0.55 as a percent is 55%. And then what is this as a percent? This is 2 1/16.6 repeating percent. Right? Because who's after all those 6's? More 6's, right? And what did I say about a 6 repeating that's over 9? 6 over 9 reduces to 2/3. So this is the same thing as 2/16 and 2/3 percent. And I don't know if they'll have you do that or not. All right, so who have we not filled in yet? Let's go back. Okay, so the 27%, he's easy to change to a decimal. How do we change him to a decimal? Divide by 100, right? So what's 27 divided by 100? 0.27. Is that okay? So the last two things, J and K, is filling in that fraction, and we're going to go off of our decimal, okay? How do we do it? We take both J and K's decimal and put it over the appropriate spot, 10, 100, or thousands. Do you agree that both 27 and 55 are the 100th spot? Okay? So this is 27 over 100, hit math frac. What do you get? Yeah, say it louder. 27 over 100, right? It doesn't reduce any. So this is 27 over 100. This is 55 over 100, guys. That's going to reduce because you can break it down to 5 times 11, 5 times 20. So if you hit 55 over 100 and hit math frac, do you get 11/20ths? Does that look right? That's a lot to fill in. I'd be like, Bree, like, oh, skip that one for now. Like I said, decimal to percent. Guys, don't give up on all of it. At least do these 2 columns, right? Decimal to percent, those aren't bad. That decimal to a fraction's a little bit trickier. All right, guys, they're just going to make sure that we feel comfortable with this last concept here. So on 4A, it says a family decides to spend no more than 33.4% on its monthly income on rent, okay? Write 33.4% as a decimal and a fraction. Well, that's okay, and they give it to the right order. So we're going to start with 33.4%, and we're going to write it as a decimal. What do we have to do to write it as a decimal? Divide by 100, aka move your decimal over 2 spots. So that will just be what? 0.334. So that's one answer. And then how do we write it as a fraction? Well, we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So we're going to do 334 over 1,000 because we have a thousandth spot, okay? And you hit math frac on your calculator, what do you get? $167 over 500. They're both divisible by 2, and that's it, okay? So there's your 2 answers. And guys, we're not going to worry about B. We'll learn about percent increase and decrease